Terrarian in the Dungeon, Chapter 29, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for listening and patreon.com/Azazyel to read all of his stories. But Ace was different. Ace had seen her previous form, so as Ace's head tilted to the side, and she spoke. I couldn't help but giggle before my mouth snapped shut in incredulous silence at the reply she got. You were the one I saved from the minotaur. I thought you had short hair and were maybe a boy. I guess it was just all the blood covering you. Ace said carelessly with the same damned lack of tact that she used when describing the sword that even now she was using. But Belle's reply. Belle's answer made me stagger and let her go of her as she spoke. Yes. I was always a girl. I just had my hair up that day, haha. Belle lied weakly as I woodenly turned towards the dungeon and away from the group so they wouldn't see my face. This is bullshit. How are you doing this? Tioni bluntly asked after she and the rest of the Loki executives, who were following us into the dungeon, saw the entrance to the tunnel I made and how no one and not even the dungeon could break the stone I placed around it. I looked at Tioni and smiled as I looked over to Tiona. My secrets are just that. Secrets. Now Loki XX help me do some actually dungeon mining, and I will give you guys free passes on the upcoming Riviera Expressway. I joked as I began placing down rail tracks on the way down the flat path that went downward until eventually, we landed at the end of my tunnel on the 4th floor, where the dungeon spawned a horde of enhanced aberrant monsters on us. Okay guys, the moment I break into a new floor, kill all the monsters as I immediately begin going around walling off the dungeon so it cannot spawn more monsters in the tunnel, I explained, and all the girls nodded with Ace standing right beside me as she prepared to dash forward, and with a couple more smashes with my pickaxe, I broke through the wall of dungeon stone in front of us and we landed on the 5th floor. Well, we would have landed there if there wasn't been a literal tide of killer ants waiting to dive into the hole I knocked into the floor. Tempest! Ace yelled, and with her magic being called into effect, she sent a small tornado of dense wind blades out through the hole I opened, and I could hear the wind blades shattering the killer ants' chitin, killing them instantly as their monster stones shattered under the level 5's powerful wind magic. I quickly began clearing the rest of the wall and replacing the corners of the hole I dug out with stone as Ace periodically sent a wave of wind blades to slice apart the monsters that spawned in retaliation to my bullshit tunnel system. Alright, Azu, let me go in, haha. Tiona laughed as she dashed past Ace after she finished sending some wind blades into the tide of ants that seemingly refused to stop spawning as I fully opened up the tunnel, which allowed the Amazon to run into the crowd of monsters and freely swing her large double-sided sword Urga with impunity, smashing and cutting through all the monsters into with her inhuman strength. Heh, I guess I will join as well. Tioni then muttered as she also dashed into the crowd, leaving Ace, who pouted at having to protect Belle, Riviera and me as I went about walling off the area so I could continue the tunnel downwards. I am going to use some magical constructs, don't attack them, I called out as I summoned my summons and quickly threw Sir Fluffykins atop the drone so it could be mobile. The starfish summon I got from the desert Scrooge quickly got to tearing through all the monsters as it spun through the monsters with its razor-sharp star sides. Eventually, though, I managed to wall off the floor so I could begin to safely continue the mineshaft downwards at an angle, and as I continued, the girls caught their breath as even Belle had to deal with a few enhanced aberrant killer ants that got past the other level 5s as they were literally stacked and running atop one another to eat me in particular. This reminds me of when that time Loki got drunk off of mixing Soma and Dionysus wine and ended up walking into the dungeon and we had to deal with hordes of enhanced weak monsters. Tiona spoke up as she stretched and flicked some of the gore off her double-ended sword, but at her words her older sister just smacked her upside the head. Anywho, I cut in to stop that topic and possibly have the Loki Familia think about silencing us. Riveria, this little horde nonsense is likely to happen on each floor. Do you think if I open a hole that you could directly just shoot a spell into the next room to clear it out? I asked, and Riveria shook her head. I could certainly send a tightly woven spell through it, but the resulting back blast would be entirely too dangerous even if it was my ice spell, Riveria explained, and I wanted to ask what good she was down here then. Alright, well then, plan B. I then turned to Sir Fluffykins the first and then refilled his grenade bag while I kept a mental eye on them in my inventory. When I open up the area, just let me throw some small bombs in there. With it being the 6th floor, there will likely be war shadows and other stuff among the killer ant swarm. I thought aloud before shrugging. I will not be useless if that is your thought, Jake. We merely need to reach level 10, where the rooms and tunnels open up into the fog-filled chambers, and I will easily be able to use my fire magic to burn away the entrance you open up and direct the remaining explosion deeper into the floor. Riveria confidently spoke as she had somehow realized my thoughts, but then again, she did have a century of wisdom going for her as she was literally 90 years old. All right. I shrugged as I looked to Belle, who was looking at Sir Fluffykins, who was riding my drone and hovering out of the reach of the grabby girls. As I continued digging deeper into the dungeon, continuously replacing the edges of the tunnel, I was digging out with my pickaxe. Tiona loudly sighed and obviously asked me. So, Jake, I get that you want to keep your secrets and all, but any chance I can get my own cute animal summoned like the squirrel? She asked, and wordlessly I threw my slime pet summon that would summon only a slime pet and not the actual slime staff that would summon a slime that would attack someone. The royal delight in Tiona's hands instantly summoned a small shin-high blue slime with 2 small eyes and a much smaller king slime crown that kept bobbing with each of the slime's bounces. Oh my god! It's so cute! Tiona screeched as she picked up the slime, and all would have killed it as she pressed it into her flat chest if it didn't flatten and hang over her arms. That slime won't fight, by the way, I warned her, and she instantly pouted, but she still didn't let go of the slime as it was clear she had instantly imprinted on the adorable slime. Do you have any more summons that can fight? Ace asked quietly, and I saw Riveria raise an eyebrow in interest as she knew all too well that having a summons that would stand beside the summoner and defend them like my starfish one would be very useful. Especially the summoners that didn't have concurrent chanting to dodge or defend themselves while chanting some stupid long spell. Not on me. And frankly, the ones I can make with the materials I have cannot match your level. If you want something useful from me, get my accessories that give miniature skills like preventing you from getting hurt from falling or any number of things. I explained, and Ace nodded before she looked at both me and Belle. What about the armor? What does it do? She continued to ask, and I shook my head. It strengthens my magic while allowing one of my magical items to take no mana to use, as it's so attuned to the item that it can use the world's surrounding mana to fuel the weapon without using my own without any issues, I said as I stopped mining to show off my space gun and how it could score a powerful burnt line on the dungeon stone. Any armor that can strengthen wind magic or otherwise make me stronger or faster? She asked, and I hummed and thought as I recalled the pumpkin armor among other things, so I nodded. Yeah, there are such things, but let's save the details for when we reach my shop, as I have everything written down for convenience. I finished the conversation as I went back to mining. But as I was mining and getting between floors, I noticed how Tioni, a lot of times, would throw her machete like cookery blades and would need to retrieve them. Then I couldn't help but wonder if she would like one of the bladed boomerangs or chakrams I could make that would return to the user after being thrown. Tioni, have you ever tried bladed boomerangs or something that would return to you after being thrown? I asked as I also realized yo-yos would fit in that area as well, and I just barely held in giggles at the thought of her using a super high-level yo-yo to clobber a boss to death. Nope, boomerangs don't do nearly enough damage and don't return to the user after smashing into something here in the dungeon. It's best to just use weapons that can be both thrown in a pinch and also used as a primary weapon. She said, giving me some actually good advice, even if that wasn't likely going to be my fighting style. Finally, though, after we hit the deeper floors of the 10th floor and past that, Riveria was able to use her powerful level 6 fire magic to blast the openings that I opened up in the floors and render any waiting horde into non-existence as the raging flames of Surt that her fire spell that took after washed over all the monsters.